who worked with us to hire 3 more police officers. I hired them this past month, but as with every police officer in our force, they will start their career by first going to the academy this July, and after rigorous training will be out on patrol in the spring of 2022. Knowing the urgency of the challenges we are faced with this summer, we have been working with the Civil Service Department and the PBA to allow for lateral transfers from other police departments. This is one avenue that could help us in the short term, but would still take likely 2 to 4 months if we have applicants who meet the department's qualifications and hiring standards. The PBA, Assistant Chief John Catone and I have also worked for months to transition from 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts for our officers. This is something they have long asked for, which should also allow for more officers on duty, as well as to provide better quality of life for the men and women of our department. In addition to the body cameras and multitude of other cameras the police department utilizes, we also have several cameras in our downtown core, which were recently upgraded. These recently upgraded cameras have been instrumental in identifying the perpetrators of Saturday morning's violence. Working in conjunction with the Albany Police Department and Albany Crime Analysis Center, I feel confident they will also lead to arrests and successful convictions. Thank you to the Albany Police Department and the Albany Crime Analysis Center for this cooperation and help. Law enforcement succeeds with these kind of partnerships. My message to those coming to disrupt our city's public safety: know that you will be caught on tape, whether by one of our officers or one of our city's many cameras, and know that you will be held accountable, whether it is teenagers assaulting other children for sport or gang members from neighboring cities that have spilled into our streets. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Currently, we are reaching out to the owners of our nightlife establishments, who are a vital part of community safety. I am thrilled to see our restaurants, bars, and businesses full of activity and patrons having suffered disproportionately from the pandemic. The police department, code enforcement, and public safety work in the spirit of education and support to maintain compliance and safety. But it is a two-way street. We will not tolerate underage drinking. We will not tolerate over-serving patrons, exceeding capacities, and communication between bars must be reestablished. When someone is kicked out of your establishment, notifying your fellow bar owners and the police helps stop assaults and fights before they happen. Simply put, the bar and nightlife owners must take some responsibility for the crowds they are soliciting and serving. If not, the SLA and government agencies will be forced to take action. My message to our police department is as follows. You are some of the finest, most capable officers in the region, if not the state. You will always have my support as your public safety commissioner. Despite what you have heard over the last year, this community needs you, it supports you, and it is lucky to have you. To our community members, support your police department. They need to know that you are behind them. To address the upcoming weeks, we are extremely thankful to the New York State Police and Saratoga County Sheriff's Department, who have agreed to support us with patrols and officers as needed, recognizing that this situation calls for more help than a department of our size possesses. We all choose to live here for the quality of life we enjoy in our city. I personally live 1 block from the downtown bars with a 4, 8, 9, and 10-year-old. I will not lower my standards of safety for my own family or for any Saratogian. And I feel confident that working together with community support, our outstanding police officers, the City Council, and our incredible partners in state and county law enforcement, we will reclaim the sense of security that has been lost. Now I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Chief John Catone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. Large fights, juvenile assaults in Congress Park, playgrounds, and downtown streets, car larcenies, the 518 Fight Club, the threatening of witnesses who call the police, stabbings, shots fired, multiple assaults on police officers. That was our week just last week. And this has been going on for a little bit of time. We have made a practice of trying to scale down the narrative of what's actually been going on, and the only thing that is done is hurt us in the long run. Saratoga Springs is not immune to the increased violence we have seen in the capital region, New York State, throughout the country. Saratoga Springs is no longer the small city in the country where you can escape the big city problems and violence. For years, the Saratoga Springs Police Department has been tracking the uptick in violence, the expansion of our special events and nightlife, and the demands being a popular destination location placed on our department and the city as a whole. The response to this information in 2010 was to slash the police and fire department's personnel to numbers seen in the late 70s and early 80s. However, the cuts in personnel did not align with the reduction of special events, closing up the bars at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. instead of 4 a.m., a reduction in racing days, or concerts. Instead, all of those things that I have just mentioned and more skyrocketed in size, popularity, to make Saratoga Springs not just the August place to be, but the year-round place to be. As has been stated many times over the last few years, there's a cost to doing business. There's a cost to being a destination location, and this cost is not just money. It's personnel, it's money, it's tolerance, it's leadership. Beauty and safety come with a price tag that some elected officials over the years have tried to promote while others have ignored. The last 16 months with the COVID-19 pandemic, violent protests, police reform, financial distress, we as a city, a state, and a nation have seen enough in those 16 months to last a lifetime. So why are we here today? We're here today because we have become a city at times filled with hate and lies and misinformation. A city where the voice of a few have created a narrative that labeled the men and women of this police department as racist killers who should be defunded. And there are some people who are running for election in November in this city who have attached themselves to that narrative and continue to promote that narrative when every bit of evidence shows that that narrative to be a lie. Promoting such a narrative does nothing more than erode the relationship between the community and the police department. Perception isn't always reality, but it's perception. And until the narrative changes, the only thing this type of narrative is doing is strengthening the criminal behavior while ignoring law and order and a safe community where everyone is welcome. We're also here today because our state leaders and legislators have failed us in so many ways. Many elected officials at the state level have promoted demonizing and prosecuting the police, while at the same time passing legislation that does nothing more than embolden the criminal to expand on the level of violence with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. The recent gun violence legislation is a clear indication that some members of the state legislature who push this legislation have absolutely no clue on how to slow down and prevent gun violence. This is yet again another clear indication of an elected official or officials who are so busy trying to keep their job, they stop doing their job. So how do we in Saratoga Springs make sure we don't become the destination location known for its violence instead of the beauty and all the things that Saratoga Springs and Saratoga County have to offer? Today, I'm pissed off. Today, I am speaking directly to the people of this city. I have earned the right to do that as a 35-year member of this police department, and whose family has been embedded in this community for 130 plus years. You have trusted me with your safety. You have trusted me for over 25 years of coaching your kids. And now I ask that you listen to our message and trust me one more time. It is time for the silent majority we have heard so much about to stand up and be heard. It's time that the want-to-be elected officials who are pushing the narrative of anti-police, defunding the police, corrupt and racist police, to lose the narrative and get informed about what this police department and what this city is truly about. If you continue to push a narrative of lies and misinformation, and you continue to divide this police department and this community because you're trying to push a narrative from a national stage that has no bearing on the city of Saratoga Springs, you are part of the problem. And I will in my final 8 months on this job, pull out every single connection my family has made over the last 130 years, and I will stop your narrative. Because we are not a hateful community, we are not a racist police department. But somebody has got to stand up and stop the lies and the misinformation. How do we stop the violence? It's simple. It's going to take a community effort of working together. You're either with us or you're not. And if you're not, then you're part of the problem. And if you're with us, then step up, be heard. Downtown Business Association, Chamber, Tourism Bureau, Community Center, City Center Authority. Step up. City leaders outside of the City Council has been unbelievably supportive. Step up. It is time. You have a choice. We're at a seminal moment in this city's history. We can become a city where we're known for our violence, or we can stop it immediately. We can stop it immediately by everybody getting on board and working together. Over the last few days, the SSPD has engaged in lengthy conversations with our partners in the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department, New York State Police, FBI, ATF, DEA, SLA, Albany Police Department, and the Albany Crime Analysis Center to formulate a plan to address the violence in Saratoga Springs that we have seen come our way. If you're one of those people who accused us of over-policing, just know this. We're going to do everything in our power with our partners to saturate the downtown area with as strong a police presence as we can get. We are asking the County Board of Supervisors to support this endeavor by giving Sheriff Zerlo all the resources he needs to supplement sheriff's deputies with our officers and those resources that we can bring to the table. I am appalled and disappointed and outraged at what we've become here in this city. Today's the day we change the narrative. Today's the day. Like I said, I only have 8 months left on this job. The officers here are young enough to be my kids. I will not leave them high and dry out there. So if you're going to go after them, that means you're going after me. And let's be clear, I'm going to fight back. And I'm going to lead them. And Chief Crooks is going to lead them. And we are going to do everything in our power to take it back. I'm going to be bold about it. I'm going to be vocal about it. It is time. You're all aware of the shooting, but the shooting was only a small part of the whole mess this weekend. We recovered from the shooting what appears to be a ghost gun, 2 spent rounds, a live round, and we do have people of interest. And yes, they are known gang members. We are working with the ATF, the New York State Police Crime Lab, and other agencies, including the Albany Police Department Gang Unit and the Albany Crime Analysis Center, to go after the people who were involved in this incident on Friday night. On Saturday night, many of those gang members returned, and they brought more people with them, and they've become emboldened. And they literally walked up to our officers, looked them in the face, and said, "We'll be back next week with more people." Okay, that's fine. So will we. And let's be clear how this is going to go. We are not going to back down. On Saturday night, we had multiple police officers get assaulted. A sheriff's deputy punched in the face, trying to break up a fight. The time is now to stop this. I want to thank the New York State Police and the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department for all their support this past weekend. The New York State Police is like all the rest of us. They are being pulled in so many directions. We can only get so much help from them. And obviously we are greatly appreciative of every little bit of help we can get. But again, our biggest resource outside of ourselves is going to be help from the county and Sheriff Zerlo. Sheriff Zerlo is on board. Sheriff Zerlo is 100% on board. We just need the county supervisors to help him get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Catone. Do we have any questions? Beth?
There seems to be four currents of community reaction out there in the past few days. A, it's under-policing. B, it's over-policing. It's disrespect for the city. It's head count.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the last one.
Head count.
Okay.
You know, we have a head count problem.
Yeah.
Now, those seem to be the four community concerns.
3 out of the 4 is good.
Okay.
3 out of the 4 is good. Would you like me to address them?
Let me pose a point here, which I'm leaning towards here. I want to know, first off, I'm highly critical of city government, but the Saratoga Police Department, I think, does an excellent job. And I think they do an excellent job because they're put under a circumstance that they have no control over. And that circumstance is the city continues to brand itself as an attraction for what, personal opinion, is an undesirable element from the whole greater 518. So my question is when is this conversation going to kind of shift a little bit from a policing conversation to what are we trying to do as a community? When are we going to stop, or at least start talking about this demographic, psychographic group of undesirables that we never have a conversation about what this community does after 10 o'clock at night? When is that conversation going to take place of what Caroline Street and the greater downtown bar district is all about?
And I'm going to address all of that. But it's funny because over the last years, I guess I've been in this position about 8 years from now, and before that ran the investigation division. And I've said the same thing for years. This city parties like it's a rock star. We start at 7 a.m. We don't end till 5 a.m. And at 5 a.m., if you're anywhere near the 5-block radius down here, it looks like something short, just short, of a third world country, with garbage and debris thrown all over the place, light poles broken, store windows broken. So you're right. When are we actually going to address the true narrative? When is that time? And that is out of the police department's hands.
Although, so public safety, however, like I said before, one of our lieutenants is contacting the bar owners. We are having a meeting with the bar and restaurant owners to talk about the kinds of crowds they're attracting, because as I said before, they bear some responsibility here.
They're not going to change.
I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure that's the case, because as I said, the capacity, the underage drinking, the over-serving of patrons, those are all things that could prompt losing a liquor license.
The demographic, the psychographic, who these people are. We can draw a picture of who these people are. That this.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure we can say we're the destination place to play, except for you, and you. So
here is part of the problem as well. And a lot of you, I read the comments over the weekend, on your various stories, and part of me gets annoyed, and part of me just chuckles, right? Under policing, you need more police. We know that. We've been saying that for decades. But what's that number? What's that number? Is it one officer for every 50 people? Is it one officer for every 100 people? One officer for every 200? If that's the case, when you put 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 people in a 5-block radius, then I need another 100 cops. We need another 100 cops if you go one officer per 100 or 200. And then you add hours and hours and hours of alcohol consumption. And that's not even when the track is in session, where we start drinking earlier in the day, and we keep going until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So how do we address that? We're not under-policing at all, or not over-policing at all. That's just an out-and-out lie. When you put 10, 12, 15 officers down there, and you have 5,000 people who are in bars drinking all night long, and some of which come from an element that we, quite frankly, don't support being here, 10, 12, 15 officers is not going to fix that problem. So what do? Do you shut the bars down at 2 o'clock? Do you add another 50 police officers on a Friday and Saturday night? That's a great community question. But it's all covered in what I just said. The cost of being a destination location, there's a price tag with it. And this community has to decide what that price tag is.
Here's a clear answer, though. People who come here to sell drugs, they can sell drugs for twice the amount that they're selling them in their own neighborhoods in neighboring cities. If we have enough police such that we can crack down on people selling drugs here, and they can no longer come here and sell drugs for double the price that they're selling them in their own cities, they will not come here. I mean, it's an easy, clear and cause and effect. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Dave Bronner, local resident. Been here many times before in the past. Not recently, but for obvious reasons. A couple of things I'd like to say. I support the police 100% in the city.
Thank you.
I think you do a hell of a job with what you have. But I'm very concerned when I hear the assistant chief say we have gang members coming in here. Where are they from? Are they from Albany? Because I can tell you in Albany, there's gangs. But the leadership in Albany, they have said in the recent past, over and over again, we have no gang problem in Albany. Well, now they've discovered they have. Finally, last week, the Attorney General cracked down there. Notice it wasn't the district attorney in Albany County, it was the state level. All of a sudden, we have all this gang problem. So are these people who are coming up here
Yes.
members of the gang? That's my first
question. Yes, they are. They're gang members coming from Albany. That's who are responsible this weekend.
Everything we possibly can here to crack down on that.
Yep.
So and real quick, Mr. Brown, part of our inclusion of the Albany Police Department and their gang unit in the Albany Crime Analysis Center is to help us identify what we've all known for a while, that there's gangs and there's gang members.
But there's been denial.
There's been a lot of denial. A lot of denial.
And that's part of the problem.
Yes.
It's not the police, okay? It's not the police. The Albany Police Department is a very good police department. They're handcuffed, okay, to some extent. I'd like to get to another point now. Last summer, we had some very intense demonstrations here. And I remember you had a council meeting, you said we're not going to allow people to block the streets and pull that one down. And then I think it was Labor Day weekend, I'm not sure. I was down here for the July 31st event. And then I was here for, I think it was Labor Day weekend, I was here. And I saw these streets all blocked out. And there was a big police presence, not just city, but other agencies as well. And, streets were blocked for hours, right? They were blocked. And we did not enforce what we said we were going to do. We said we were not going to allow this to happen. And it happened, and the streets were blocked, and then they marched on down the street, started harassing diners and people who come to our city to enjoy this place. It was a terrible sight, but it was allowed to happen. And so I know we were concerned about the situation getting out of control and all that, but when you say you've got a law, ordinance, whatever on the books, and you're going to enforce it, and then you don't, the message that sends to these gangbangers from Albany is, hey, Saratoga Springs is low-hanging fruit, so let's go up there.
I'm glad you asked that question because there's actually a much more nuanced answer than I think people understand. Do you want to take that, Chief? Or do you
Part
want
of
me
the problem, and it was actually later in the year, it was more
November.
closer to November, wasn't it? It was more closer late October.
What happened was there was a protest in September that was quite violent. People were aggressive. We met, and then this November,
We had every
situation
intention.
happened.
Only to figure out that we were outmanned. Only to figure out that the people we were going up against had baseball bats, knives, some carrying guns. But we didn't have enough cops. State police was trying to get us cops from all over the capital region so we could have enough cops. They were not allowed to engage because they have rules and policies, just like we have rules and policies, until they could get enough of their personnel here. So we were handcuffed.
And
that was part of the problem.
And when I have the chief of police say to me that if we go in right now to make arrests, our officers are going to get hurt. There's a large possibility that we will get hurt. And when I have a captain from the state police say to me the same thing, if we go out right now and make arrests, there are going to be injuries on our end. I am never going to overrule them and say, go out anyway, because I have to protect the lives of law enforcement that is in this city.
I understand, but you understand the message that
I understand the message it sends. I also understand that this is an issue that's complex and nuanced, and people want to have one strong answer or another. And we have to weigh the balance of public safety and safety of our law enforcement agents. And sometimes we are going to be able to go in there and clear the street if we have the manpower and if the situation allows. Sometimes we are looking at the situation and either we don't have the manpower or we're able to move them on their way and the disruption is limited to 15 or 20 minutes and it's safer for everyone for us to push them along and not go in and create a violent confrontation.
Thank you.
Assistant Chief Gatone, you're 35 years on the job. Can you put into context if this in fact is the most violence this city has seen in this short span, and if so, why now?
Yes, Mark. I think I spent most of those 35 years talking to you, haven't I? Little do they know we all competed against each other. We were in high school, too. Right? It is. And then why? Because we've emboldened the criminals. It's a different mindset now. We used to have more bars. When I started here, we went all the way out to the rafters. The rafters were still open. We had Sneaky Pete's, we had the Golden Grill, we had all kinds, where Brugger's used to be was the poorhouse, the hub. We had more bars and less problems. And when the police, and we worked with less officers. And when the police arrived and we cleared up the problem, that was it for the end of the night. That was it. There was also a time frame where people would come here and, they'd get ready to get in a fight, and people from Saratoga who were downtown partying like, yeah, no, we don't do that. Not with this police department. You don't do that. But that mindset has changed. It has changed in the city, in this county, in this state, and it has changed nationally because there's a narrative that emboldens the criminal while they demonize the police. And as long as you continue to push that narrative and you do not hold the criminal accountable, these things will only continue to escalate.
I do want to clarify, though, people are asking if there's an uptick in crime in general. We haven't gotten through the summer. When we get through the summer, we can compare it to other summers. As we can.
We haven't even hit July 1st yet.
Correct. So I just want to be clear about that. We have to have analytics and data to confirm some updates. Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Ron. Chief Gatone, I deeply appreciate you and your force.
Thank you.
And I feel your pain. I lived in Houston, Texas for 50 years of my career. We had MS-13 there. So it can get really bad. You mentioned your concern, your outrage, your high dudgeon regarding social media and how the police are being demonized and so on. And clearly that's something we can push back against if we really feel we want to defend our city and support our police department. But on a more grassroots level, what can I do? I live behind St. Clemens Church. I don't go down to Caroline Street anymore. I'm way too old for that, okay?
Me too.
Back in the day, all right? But what can we do? I mean, is it neighborhood watch? Is it just talking it up with our neighbors? I mean, what constructive nexus can we have with the policing community to improve your life?
It starts with those things you just mentioned. I went to St. Clemens School. I went to Spa Cat. Used to be able to walk around here, do whatever you want to do. You didn't have to worry about, being assaulted in Congress Park or at the East Side Rec or the West Side Rec. So the things you just mentioned are really the way to go. Neighbor to neighbor, block to block, section to section of this community. It's got to happen on the I call it the outer district, which is where all of you live. And the inner district has to take responsibility for helping police their areas. And it's community engagement.
We need people to call. You see something, you need to call.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that's not happening. You see something, someone's fighting, something that looks minor, people walk by, they don't call. We need you to call. If we don't know about the problem, we can't respond to the problem.
We had an incident up on Schuyler Drive a month and a half ago, where I got a call from one of the residents up there who's known me all my life, and they're like, and actually it was their daughter because they're way up in age, and their daughter went to school with me. She called me up. She says, "Hey, my parents are locked in the house. Is it okay if they come out now?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "There was a huge police presence up there, Now this is 5, 6 o'clock at night. There's a huge police presence up there, and the officers said, hey, lock your doors, don't come out. I said, on Skylar Drive? On Benton Drive? That doesn't happen up there. And she's like, yeah. I said, okay, let me make a phone call and find out what's going on. And sure enough, part of this whole assaulting of juveniles, there was a bunch of kids that showed up and jumped a kid carrying a backpack and beat him and then took off. And we got a call of I believe, was it a robbery or something along those lines. And, you know, the officers don't know everything that's going on. So when they start to see, you know, all of these homeowners outside, and especially some of them are up there in age, they're like, hey, go on back inside and lock your door until, you know, we figure out what's going on. So I called that person back and said, hey, tell your mom and dad we're all set. It's all taken care of. And we appreciate the fact that the people from up in that area called us. That is not something that we are accustomed to that in this city. Nor should we be accustomed to in this city, and we should not stand for it. But we can't do it. We can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah, we need parents to step up and do their jobs. Like parents, you need to know where your kids are. Parents, you need to know what your kids are doing. Parents, you need to give consequences to your children when they misbehave. These kids that are involved in these fight clubs, it is widely known who they are. Widely known. And yet it has been allowed to continue and continue and continue. So this is not a law, like we said when we sat down, this is not just a law enforcement issue, this is a community issue. We have to work in partnership.
To clarify,
Sir,
just a quick clarification. The incident that she was talking about, the assault robbery over in Skylar, that's, my name is Bob Gilson. I oversee the Detective Bureau here. That one's not related to the fight club. There were youths involved there, but the two groups are separate and apart.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Technology, I'm not a technology geek, but can you leverage your low manpower with drones and cameras and all sorts of things? I mean, tactically, is there technology you can afford that's not high cost, that's more effective?
So we're looking at drones. We've looked at some drones. They're a little bit expensive, but yeah, listen, again, there's a cost of doing business. We are also, we're looking at a couple of things. We're actually, and I haven't really said this to anybody, so I'm going to let it out now, is we're actually looking, presently we're talking with a company about building our own website separate and apart from the city's. Something that we can manage and monitor all the time. And the companies that we're talking to, we've asked that they look at software that will alert us or help someone like yourself send us a quick text message or whatever the case may be of what this. Now, I am going to be the first one to tell you I am not the most tech-savvy person, but we have some really good police officers who are, because they're all young. That's the only thing they know. Right?
We also are looking at, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we're looking at, and we're looking at this. We need to have a short-term plan, which I think we have. But we also need to approach this from a long-term, successful solution to moving forward.
I think it's time. I know how to text.
No, that's right.
By the way, you can raise my taxes. That'll help.
The politicians isn't going to say raise taxes. Maybe these guys can. We did sign an agreement back in the fall with the drone company that is developing technology that could be used in public safety in a multitude of ways. Primarily for the police department, though, that really helps with crowd management when we have large special events. And it could also be helped in fire. It could help, transport medical supplies and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's absolutely technology we're pursuing, and that could be very valuable as a tool for the whole department.
Chief, you talk about being handcuffed and the criminals being emboldened. How much of this has to do with bail reform, knowing full well that you can arrest a lot of people and they'll be out maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later? They said to you, they'll be back.
They'll be out before we start the paperwork.
Yeah.
And in most of these things, a lot of times you don't even bring them in to get processed. It's appearance tickets.
We've had people burn their appearance tickets.
You're dealing with the same thing on the juvenile level, where we've done the raise the age. So we've raised the age 16 to 18, and Lieutenant Gilson, who used to deal with juveniles too, understands that a lot better than I do and has spent more time on that than I have. But we've raised the age and how we deal with juveniles, and in a sense, there's no consequences now, or limited consequences, and there's limited ability to arrest. I mean, Bob can speak to it, but
The frustrations there are endless. Before you would get, we have a good relationship with Saratoga County Probation, which is the intake portion for juvenile offenses. And a majority of the ones with this raised the age legislation, they have designated felonies. I need a flow chart and stuff to try to explain this, a whiteboard for sure. But sometimes we used to get them down and get some assistance early on, some preventive measures from there, but now it's the accountability portion, or holding these young people accountable, is very difficult, and the challenges. I don't know if you all saw the release not too long ago, in the past month or so, from Colony Police. They had a great article where they arrested 3 people for a burglary in a hotel. And this is person A. They've been arrested 21 times since January 1 with bail reform. And the bail reform legislation itself brings up additional challenges. It has been changed a couple of times along the way, amended by the legislation. But what is automatic qualifiers for bail? What's automatic qualifiers for arraignment? What qualifies for bail? Most is catch and release nowadays, which can be frustrating. And you have to know, you have to have a strong working knowledge of when you can or cannot hold someone, because you put yourself in the department in jeopardy if you go and look to violate someone's rights. You can't do that. We have to police constitutionally and abide by the laws of New York, not just the Constitution, but of New York State as well as our city ordinance.
You know, when it comes to juvenile offenders, though, and things that are happening with teenagers, when they're students in our high school, we need the school district to step up and work with us in partnership. It's my feeling that if you're in a sports team and you've signed a code of conduct, and we have videos of you fighting and engaging in fight clubs, fighting other kids, beating up other kids, it's my feeling you should be removed from that team. But we need the school district to step up and work with us on that, because it's teachers, it's coaches, it's parents, it's law enforcement. It does actually take a village. We need a comprehensive approach to this.
Commissioner, practically speaking, how many police officers do you need to hire right away? You mentioned that you're short. Is there a chance that you're going to be able to have them on? You mentioned the training, but is there a chance you're going to be able to have them on in the next few months?
So our best shot at getting officers on in the next few months are lateral transfers. That would take 3 to 4 months likely if they hit the qualifications and requirements that we as a department have. If they fit those qualifications or requirements, maybe 3 to 4 months, I would say.
3 to 4 months. And listen, I've had a lot of great mentors.
Exactly, non-time. So
I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, personally, coaching in this line of work. And the one thing they all taught me is you never compromise your values and what you believe in. We're not, and I'm going to make this very loud and clear to anybody that wants to lateral transfer here. First of all, we need to make sure this community supports our endeavor. Otherwise, don't waste your time in coming here. If you don't have a great track record as a police officer, don't send me an application. I'm not interested. Because we are not, under any circumstances, going to compromise our values and standards just to put a body in a car. It's not going to happen. But that being said, we are going to do everything in our power. And hopefully by the end of this week, we'll be able to have everything worked out with our HR department and our city attorney and the unions and civil service so that we can actually officially announce our accepting of resumes for lateral transfers. Can we fast track some of those? I don't know, Sergeant Sicko, can we fast track some of those? They'll do what they can. They'll get them done. But do I foresee us being able to have people by the middle of the racing season or the SPAC season? I don't. That's a big push.
What will it look like this weekend? How will this weekend, a holiday weekend, be different than the last weekend of Rome?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Holiday or no holiday, do you want to know what the last 3 weekends have looked like down there? They've looked like Travers Night. Yeah. They've looked like Travers Weekend down there. So we're going to approach from this weekend through Labor Day weekend, like every weekend is Travers Weekend. And somewhere in there will be Travers Weekend. But that's the approach we're going to have to take until we get conformity, until we get cooperation, and until we end the violence that's been going on.
So you'll staff it that way?
So
We're gonna
we will
staff
staff it with our partners at the Saratoga County Sheriff's
What have they
Department.
committed to the county and the state in terms of staffing for these weekends?
Well, we're in conversations with the county on that, how many we can get. Again, you gotta remember that the county has a lot to cover too. In terms of the state police, the
Number is growing.
33% of Americans find the CDC